Yes, hello and welcome. This is Dr. John Mason welcoming you to the Masters of the Journey. And today we have a very special interview. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Let me just put up a little bit of information. Okay, as you can see, we've got a new member and friend, Gil, who's going to be giving us some information today, a little bit about his background and about the presentation that he's going to be making um, in the future to our Masters of the Journey meeting. But we really want to get his background, so I'm going to bring him in just a moment.
Okay.
So this is, again, John Mason, and I'm really excited today because I have met this wonderful man and his wife. They're brand new in the Bellingham area. That's in the Pacific Northwest. He came to a Masters of the Journey meeting, and I've gotten to know him a little bit. But even more importantly, we talked a little bit about him doing presentations and the work that he's doing in our area. And I was able to have a session with him. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about his background, but I want you to know that it was really spectacular. At the end of our session, I really was experiencing, for me, this is what I needed to get from it, but it was an extreme amount of healing energy that seemed to be just radiating from my hands, just glowing and pulsing in my hands. And I attribute that to the work that Gil has done. So if that gets you excited as far as listening to this interview, then let's bring Gil on and ask him to give a little bit of introduction and a lot of his background so he can tell you how he can be of service to you and to the world. So Gil, come on in, and I welcome you to introduce yourself, and we'll get this thing started.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
It's it's a
Um,
it's a real pleasure to hear from you. So what brought you to Bellingham, and what was the background that gave you the guidance to get here?
oh, moving with spirit, always, as I've done all my life. Started unconsciously and then went into consciously. Um, I was born and raised in Israel and moved to the United States after traveling the world for a while, pretty much 30 years ago. Um, and I've lived in New York for a few years, where I began consciously my spiritual journey some 30 years ago. I have studied many modalities and healing modalities and spiritual practices, and I've developed my own holistic art form that I was teaching and practicing in New York. And but something was missing for me. I knew there was more, and so I moved from New York into the Pacific Northwest, into a place called Yelm. And I went into the woods and I went into my inner journey. And I had a breakthrough experience at some point that began a revolution, an inner revolution, began to break me free from within, where I started what I call my true awakening. Up to that point, I had significant spiritual experiences, but these were glimpses. From that experience, which happened pretty much 10 years ago, I have, through my will and through my passion, made it consistent. Um, and I began to awaken to my true purpose, and started to create a medium of communication and transmission and transformation that I could share with my human family to assist and to help in our spiritual growth. And very recently, 3 months ago, so I moved from Yam to Bellingham. It was a calling from soul, from spirit, from the beloved benevolent one, which I am in a love affair with and moving with and co-creating with, to move and from the woods and start sharing my discoveries and the gifts that are derivative of that experience.
You know, I'm so glad that you wound up in Bellingham. And what you didn't tell your backstory, and you really don't have to, but I know that Gil represented the country and the state of Israel as a world champion weightlifter, and that's not what he's doing now. But
No.
I'm not really gonna get into the experience that I heard about the Yelm piece of it, which was something that would, I'm sure, when you do hear it, if you get that opportunity, will blow your mind, because of the source of that. But I really have that sense of his integrity and his passion to now help us transform and develop at a much higher level. And if I've only had my own one personal experience with that, but can you speak a little bit about what people might expect if they have the opportunity to have a session with you?
Well, the session is focused on guiding the individual into their access point, into soul consciousness, which I see through my experience a key ingredient to bring into our spiritual practice on the planet today, which create a new point zero, if you will, which is the ancient future point of access between the soul and the human. What was distorting this portal all along through our experience here is the density layers of the ego programs, of the mental, emotional, and biochemical ego programs, which is what is confining humanity to a condition that is illusory. And those layers are distorting otherwise this natural and organic connection between the soul and the human. And I had the privilege, and I feel very fortunate that I found access and began the process of liberating myself from the ego human programming. And so the session is focused to guide the individual to provide vital information and experiential practices and techniques and practical tools to find that access point and to begin to open the transdimensional portal of the quantum heart, through which is granted the access into soul consciousness, and begin to activate the transdimensional vortex of the heart, through which there is an alignment with the divine process of the transfusion of soul consciousness with human consciousness, which begins the real revolution and transformation of the individual practicing that.
Well, I'm going to put up Gil's contact information, his email, so that you can get in touch with him if you want to find out more of this information as it benefits you, or to set up a time to have a session with him if you're looking for a transformative experience. I'm going to try to put this into layman's terms, but it seemed like he was transmitting or channeling some very interesting energy. My body responded to it and resonated with what he had in mind. For me, it took the form of a very intense energy that I could feel like pulsating and glowing in my hands. And took me a couple of days to begin to really integrate that. But I know that in my heart that it offered me an opportunity to know and learn from the divine how to share that energy in a healing sense with other people. It was, for me, pretty spectacular. But let me ask you this, Gil. What do you see from your perspective would be the most important advice that you can offer, or that you can help guide people with as they begin to align with their very highest purpose? What would you say to them?
Um, I would say this. There is a level of love that is existing in our midst that has been hidden from us for eons of evolution as human beings. And that disconnection from this level of love created the human condition, which is the old system, which I call the ego-human closed system. Um, and this level of love has no opposition. It is a level of love that is unknown to humanity up to this point, and now is beginning to make itself known here on our planet. What I would advise is to make a new point in the spiritual practice to find access into this level of love. And this level of love is available to all of us equally, with no exception. We had great spiritual masters and teachers teaching us some very important information. And what they have done as individuals, they simply found access into that level of love and into this higher octave of dimensional frequency, and started to bring information from this into the human. But what is occurring right now in the new era that we are surely leaping into is that it becomes available to all of us. And I suggest to put that as a focal point of concentration when you go into meditation or into your spiritual practice, in whatever you do, and start to make a new point so that you are bringing into the practice a new memory. You are simply beginning to remember your opening. There is an opening within each and every one of us, and it is the portal of the quantum heart. And when you allow yourself to be in that threshold and to allow it to open through your breath and inner gazing and focus, it will open unto you. And that's when you will meet your true self, your true sovereign immortal self, which is your only master teacher. And so it is extremely important that we guide today individuals to become their own self-sufficient master teachers. And so we can all be guided from within rather than from an external source, but to become self-reliant and bring the resourcefulness from within ourselves. For indeed, within each and every one of us is living the master, the soul, the true sovereign self.
You know, you're going to ask us to take responsibility and to be the divine and not have the excuse of the human condition and the human drama and the human limitations of our body. It is spectacular. I don't think it's for everyone, but but the people who want to really connect with the divine within them, and like you say, tap the unlimited wisdom of the divine, to perhaps find ways of communicating that through their experience, through their human bodies in this life. You're asking us to step up to the plate and sign up to be the earth angels that we really are.
So
Did
be
I take us astray by saying it that way?
I love your take on it, and I love the angle you bring it from, John. It's beautiful to me. And yes, indeed, we need more individuals that are walking treasures in our world, that are connected directly with the realm of spirit from within and beginning to bring information and transmissions directly from this realm through a direct experience and connection. This is extremely vital for us to help us, all of us, as a human family on earth, to move to the next level in this profound shift of consciousness that we're going through that has never been experienced on this planet before.
I I know that you're humble, and these words are so grand, they're so large, it's almost unbelievable. But what I know of you is that you're sincere, and that I trust that the experience that people can have may help to guide them to this very high level of consciousness and perhaps the power to really follow their passion and to serve humanity and beyond the universe with a really elevated purpose. You're a blessing, Gil. Thank you so much. And in a minute, I'm going to put up your contact information so that people can get in touch with you. But before I do that, is there any parting words or information that you would consider offering or supporting people, or an invitation that you would like to make so that people can then follow up with you and set up a time to chat with you or to have a session with you?
Yes, I will simply say that each and every one of us is a walking treasure in the making. Whether we are aware of it or not, it doesn't matter, because what we are is what we are. And we are living in days in which we are beginning to discover and to remember who we really are. And when we are, we become unstoppable. And together we can co-create a world that works for all of us and not just for some of us. And if you create the little time for yourself and a little sacred space for yourself and begin to communicate with your own soul, with your own inner master, the observer that watched you through the whole process of your human experience and loved you and never judged you for any experience, be it horrible and painful, which we have all been through, or be it pleasurable and magnificent. It never judged it. For that master, whether it is negative or positive, it plays equal roles in self-creation. And that's what we're here to do. And what I call my medium is the way of the soulful human. Because for me, we're shifting from the old system of the ego human, which is mind-centered and fear-based, into the new system, which is an open system, which I call the soulful human, which is heart-centered and divine love-based living.
And can you do this with people that aren't in the Bellingham or Pacific Northwest? Can you reach out and somehow serve people around the world?
Absolutely. I'm already doing it on an individual level globally. I'm doing sessions online. And I am planning now with my beloved partner to create a medium online as well, where we can provide this service globally all around the world.
Well, I look forward to hearing so much more from you. I know that you and I are going to get a chance to work together because we're local. In a minute, like I say, I'm going to be putting up your contact information, but I just wanted to thank you so much for coming to Bellingham, for stepping forward to meet us and to join our Masters of the Journey community locally and globally. So, Gil, thank you. And is there anything you want to say in signing off?
I just wanted to thank you, John, for having me here and to have this opportunity. And I'm looking forward for our miraculous co-creations for the good of all.
Well, that's a blessing. You're a blessing. I appreciate that. I'm going to pause our interview right now, and I'm going to put up the contact information if you'll just hang in there with us. Okay, so this is our contact information for the Masters of the Journey, and I was just speaking with Gil. You're going to find his contact information located on this YouTube file. And the reason why I didn't put up the slide is because there's going to be a new website, and there's going to be the great email, maybe even a phone number, I don't even know. But there, you'll have his contact information based on the file from this YouTube thing. Just look down on the bottom of this page to find out more about him. And I really thank you for spending your time. You're considering this information. I think that you are a miracle and a blessing. So just continue to be who you are and find a way to tell your story, share your story, and find the purpose that is of greatest service to humanity. So you are a blessing, and I'm signing off for right now. If you need to get in touch with us, our contact information for the Master of the Journey is in front of you. Thank you so much for your attention.